The rain hammered against the cracked windshield of Marcus Webb's 15-year-old Toyota as he navigated through the darkened streets of Detroit. His shift at the warehouse had run late again. No overtime pay, just the expectation that he'd finish loading the trucks before he could clock out. In the back seat, his 6-year-old daughter Zoe slept peacefully, her small body curled beneath his work jacket, clutching the worn teddy bear that had been her comfort since her mother walked out 2 years ago. Marcus rubbed his exhausted eyes, fighting to stay alert. The check engine light had been on for 3 months, but there was never enough money to fix it. Between rent, utilities, Zoe's asthma medication, and trying to keep food on the table, car repairs were a luxury he couldn't afford. He worked 60 hours a week and still came up short every month. But he never let Zoe see him worry. Every night, he tucked her in with a smile and a story, promising her that better days were coming. As he turned onto the service road that cut through the industrial district, a shortcut that saved him 10 minutes and a few precious drops of gas, something caught his eye. At first, he thought it was a pile of discarded clothes near the guardrail, but then he saw it move. Marcus slowed the car, squinting through the rain-streaked window. His heart seized when he realized what he was looking at. A small figure, a child, collapsed on the wet pavement. Without thinking, Marcus pulled over and threw the car into park. He glanced back at Zoe, still sleeping, then stepped out into the pelting rain. As he approached, he could see it was a young girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, wearing what had once been an expensive-looking white dress, now soaked and muddy. Her skin was pale, lips tinged blue, and she was shivering violently. "Hey, sweetie, can you hear me?" Marcus knelt beside her, his work pants soaking through instantly. The girl's eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused and glassy. She tried to speak, but only a weak whimper escaped her lips. Marcus pressed his fingers to her neck, feeling a pulse that was far too rapid and weak. She was in serious trouble. He looked around desperately. This stretch of road was desolate at this hour, nothing but abandoned factories and empty lots. His phone had less than 5% battery, and he was at least 20 minutes from the nearest hospital. Every second he spent waiting for an ambulance was a second this child might not have. Marcus made his decision. He scooped the girl into his arms, she was frighteningly light, and carried her to his car. He laid her across the back seat next to Zoe, who stirred but didn't wake. Cranking the heat as high as it would go, Marcus pulled back onto the road and pressed the accelerator, pushing his dying car faster than he'd dared in years. "Stay with me, baby girl," he said, glancing in the rearview mirror every few seconds. "You're going to be okay. I promise you're going to be okay." The girl drifted in and out of consciousness. Marcus talked to her constantly, his deep voice steady and reassuring, the same voice he used when Zoe had nightmares. He told her about his daughter, about the pancakes he was going to make in the morning, about the funny things that happened at the warehouse. Anything to keep her tethered to consciousness, to life. When he finally screeched into the emergency room bay at Detroit Mercy Hospital, Marcus burst through the doors carrying the girl, shouting for help. Medical staff swarmed immediately. A nurse tried to take the girl from his arms, but Marcus held on for just a moment longer, looking down at her pale face. "You fight," he whispered. "You're strong enough to fight." The next hours blurred together. Marcus had to wake Zoe and bring her inside, where she sat on his lap in the waiting room, confused and scared. Hospital security questioned him repeatedly. Who was he? Where had he found the girl? Why hadn't he called 911? Marcus answered every question patiently, though exhaustion made his head swim. A police officer arrived and asked the same questions all over again. Marcus cooperated fully, even as fear crept up his spine. He knew how this looked. A black man, poor, showing up with an unconscious white child. He'd heard too many stories that started this way and ended badly. But he'd done the right thing. He knew that in his bones. Whatever happened to him, that little girl was getting help, and that was what mattered. Around 3 in the morning, a doctor emerged from the emergency department. "The girl you brought in, she's stabilized. Severe hypothermia, dehydration, signs of trauma consistent with a car accident. You saved her life. Another 30 minutes and we would have lost her." Marcus felt his knees go weak. He pulled Zoe closer and closed his eyes, sending up a silent prayer of gratitude. "Do you know who she is?" the doctor asked. Marcus shook his head. Never seen her before. Just found her on the side of the road. Within the hour, the hospital had identified her through missing person reports. The girl's name was Emma Catherine Ashford, daughter of billionaire tech mogul Richard Ashford. She'd been kidnapped 3 days earlier, and the entire state had been searching for her. The kidnappers' vehicle had crashed during a police chase earlier that evening, and in the chaos, Emma had wandered away from the wreck, disoriented and injured, eventually collapsing where Marcus found her. When Richard Ashford arrived at the hospital just before dawn, Marcus barely recognized him at first. Without his suit and tie, his eyes red from crying, his hands shaking, he looked like any other terrified father. He rushed past Marcus and the gathered police officers, desperate to see his daughter. Through the window of Emma's room, Marcus watched the reunion. Richard collapsed at his daughter's bedside, clutching her hand, his shoulders shaking with sobs of relief. Marcus thought about leaving. He'd done what any decent person would do, and the Ashfords had their daughter back. He had to get Zoe home, get a few hours of sleep before his next shift. But before he could slip away, Richard Ashford emerged from Emma's room and walked directly to him. "You're Marcus Webb." Richard's voice was hoarse. "You're the man who found my daughter." Marcus stood, instinctively putting himself between this powerful stranger and Zoe. "Yes, sir. I'm just glad she's okay." Richard stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus saw something shift in the man's expression, a crumbling of whatever walls he usually kept up. "The doctors said you probably saved her life. That you drove her here yourself, stayed with her, made sure she got help." His voice broke. "She's my whole world. My wife died when Emma was 3. She's all I have left." Marcus felt the words in his chest. "I understand, Mr. Ashford. I have a daughter too." He put his hand on Zoe's shoulder. "I couldn't leave your little girl out there. Nobody could. But you did more than find her," Richard said. "The security footage shows you talking to her, keeping her conscious. The doctors said that made the difference. You treated her like she was your own." Tears streamed down Richard's face without shame. "How can I ever thank you?" Marcus felt uncomfortable with the gratitude, with the attention. "You don't need to thank me, sir. Just take care of her. Hold her tight. That's enough." But Richard Ashford was not a man accustomed to leaving debts unpaid. Over the following days, as Emma recovered, he learned everything about Marcus Webb. He learned about the 60-hour work weeks, the medical bills, the broken-down car, the eviction notice Marcus had hidden in his glove compartment because he couldn't bear to think about it. He learned about Zoe's asthma, about the prescriptions Marcus sometimes had to choose between. He learned about a good man drowning in circumstances beyond his control, still showing up every day with love and hope for his daughter. Richard came to visit Marcus at the warehouse 3 weeks after Emma was released from the hospital. He found Marcus during lunch break, sitting on a loading dock eating a peanut butter sandwich, the same thing he'd eaten for lunch every day for months. "Mr. Webb, I need to talk to you." Marcus looked up, startled. "Mr. Ashford, is Emma okay?" "She's doing wonderfully, thanks to you." Richard sat down beside him, looking out of place in his expensive suit among the shipping containers. "She talks about you constantly. Asks when she can meet Mr. Marcus's again. Wants to thank the man who saved her." Marcus smiled. "She doesn't need to thank me. What if I told you," Richard said carefully, "that I want to offer you a job? Director of Community Outreach for Ashford Industries. 6-figure salary, full benefits, company car. Your job would be to identify people and communities that need help and make sure they get it. You'd be perfect for it. You understand what people are going through because you've lived it." Marcus nearly choked on his sandwich. "Mr. Ashford, I appreciate the thought, but I'm a warehouse worker. I don't have a college degree. I'm not qualified for something like that. You saved my daughter's life when you had every reason to just keep driving," Richard said firmly. "You were exhausted, worried about your own child, driving a car that could break down any minute. You probably knew how it would look, a black man showing up with an unconscious white child. You could have made an anonymous call and left. But you didn't. You stayed with her, advocated for her, made sure she was safe. That tells me everything I need to know about your qualifications." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "I have to think about Zoe. I can't uproot her life on something that might not work out." So don't uproot her life, Richard said. Stay in your neighborhood if you want. I'll make sure the schools there get the funding they need to be excellent. Or move if that's better for you, I'll help either way. This isn't charity, Marcus. This is me recognizing what kind of man you are and what you could do with the right resources. Plus, honestly, Emma won't let me rest until you say yes. She made me promise to ask you to her birthday party next month. She wants Zoe to come too. The party was unlike anything Marcus and Zoe had ever experienced. The Ashford estate was overwhelming, but Emma ran straight to them when they arrived, grabbing Zoe's hand and pulling her toward the bounce house without any of the awkwardness that might have existed between two children from such different worlds. They were just two little girls, and within minutes they were giggling together like old friends. Emma kept Marcus close all afternoon. She'd hold his hand when she got nervous, introduce him to everyone as, my mister. Marcus who saved me, and refused to blow out her birthday candles until he was standing right beside her. Richard watched it all with tears in his eyes, seeing his daughter alive and laughing.